This £11 LED can genuinely transform your videos. From spicing up your B-roll to creating mood in your A-roll, or even as a key light in your studio. These things are awesome. And for £11, it's a joke. Photography, videography is expensive, and the fact that people can access some of the things we're about to go through in this video for £11 is a great thing. This £11 can be stretched, and I mean seriously stretched. I have an LED panel, and yet every single time I go to my mini LED light, they are infinitely easier to use and more portable, which leads to a lot of the time actually being able to do stuff that I couldn't typically do with my big panel. But we'll get into some of that in a bit. FYI, I'm using a modern camera with some pretty fast glass. It's a Sony a7S III with a 35mm 1.8, which costs about 400 times more than this light does. And that's not including the £150 SD card that's in the camera. So if you're dubious, I'm going to be taking examples with the exact same setup throughout the video, but without any of these lights. Guys, cameras are important, but they are not everything, and I think you'll see a bit of that throughout this video. First, let's kick off with wall painting. Here is our first subject with just a softbox providing the key light. It certainly looks good, we can see the product, but what we can do is potentially spice it up a little bit. What this can provide is contrast, and that can come in a couple of different ways, by placing the light at the other end of the room in line with the subject. By putting this light in line with the subject, we're creating a glow, a halo effect, which is helping to draw the viewer's eyes into the middle of the frame. It's of course very subtle, but it does make a notable difference to the image. And one of the beauties of this is that it takes a matter of seconds. Making life a bit easier is always going to be worth the investment. And so here's this shot without any of the lights that we've currently used. The entire setup I'm using for this bit costs £220. I've made a video on that entire setup if you're interested. For just £200, you can go from this to this. Even though we've got this £4,000 camera setup, the image is clearly significantly worse than when we're doing this. We can also begin to play with more moody aesthetics by using this thing as a hair light. A hair light basically just provides an outline to the subject that you're filming. Often in interviews, for example, I would have a light here, which is just going to further separate me from the background. When you're doing this for a product shot, for some B-roll, you can really begin to experiment and have some fun with some quite dramatic lighting. And because this thing is so portable and small, you can just plop it next to the thing that you're filming and get some awesome results. In fact, these things are so portable that they can do things that my LED panel just can't. If you look here, for example, I have a light placed in this corner and I have a light placed at the back corner. This room is really small, so being able to just plop that behind any object in the frame makes a big difference in my ability to create some more depth. However, this stuff is currently supplementing an already existing lighting setup, so let's get into some more workhorse applications for this beast. With a few minor workarounds, this thing can even be a key light. Of course, this isn't the best example in the world, but there are a few hints and tips that I can offer you to make a key lighting setup out of this light. Ideally, we want to be able to angle this light. So let's put this thing on a little tripod stand, and then because there is no axis to direct that light downwards towards me, we're going to want to find something to prop the tripod up just a little bit so we can have some of that downwards facing light on the side of my face to cast some shadow and create some depth. Another great tip here is to wrap some toilet roll around the light. This light does have a built-in diffuser, but it's very faint, and we're going to want to create as soft a light as possible when we're trying to light a subject. This is going to reproduce the skin in a much more favourable way for anyone. So you're going to want to find some tape and attach the first little block of toilet roll to the light, and then you can simply just wrap it around. And as you can see, we now have a setup. It's not incredible or great by any means, but it is a hell of a lot better than not using any lights. The blue light behind me is casted from my other LED light, which is an RGB one, and I'll do a video comparing these two in another video. I've now turned it orange within the same brightness range as this LED. And so what we're seeing now is what you would get if you were to buy two of these lights. All the lighting in this current shot costs £22. And now this is the same shot but with no lighting. Buying more expensive cameras is definitely a thing to consider, but if you look at a scene like this, you realise that lighting really is key. Of course, this scene isn't as refined as the one I'm currently in. However, it's amazing the difference that £22 can make to a shot. Cameras are obviously important, and there's a reason I own this camera, but when you're inside of a controlled environment, it's going to be a lot cheaper to invest in the lighting than it is to invest in a whole new camera setup. And there isn't a camera in the world that's going to make a terribly lit scene look good. The sensor on my camera, the A7S III, really shines when it's outside of a controlled environment, when you're filming out in nature or harsh sunlight, and that high dynamic range sensor can really tame some of those images and give you a natural look. In a controlled environment where we've shaped the light, it makes a very, very small difference. And of course, you can mount this bad boy to your camera and enjoy lighting wherever the hell you are, giving you some soft light on the go. I mounted this one to my small rig cage, and it very much speaks for itself. It's pure convenience, and if you're in a dark space, this thing will make all the difference. There you go. There is an infinite amount of utility that you can gain from this light. Something like this is going to offer you access to all that we've gone through today for £11, which basically anyone can afford. Having said that, there are of course some downsides that you should be aware of. When you're spending £11, you're obviously going to be making certain concessions. The build quality on this thing is suboptimal. I don't think it's going to last many drops. It may be the case that after a period of months or hopefully years, this thing will begin to show reliability issues. Having said that, I've had this thing for about 3 months now. I've used it a number of times and I haven't experienced any reliability issues so far, but this is very much going to be one of those things you buy early on to grant access to what we've discussed, but you're going to want to upgrade as you go through your videography photography journey. Certainly good for £11. The only real quirk I found with the mini LED is that it does take quite a while to charge, but you're going to get a solid 2 hours of light. My RGB one I absolutely love. It's a cheaper version of the other products on the market, but it's still very robust, and having those extra colors offers a lot more flexibility. So you're probably not going to want to use this thing as your LED workhorse. You're not going to want it on a paid shoot and you absolutely need this thing to work. But if you're starting out, you're filming in your bedroom and you're thinking you can make use of a lot of what we've covered today, then you should absolutely buy it.